Hello, this is Aljets doing the bi-weekly check-in for September 29th. And so, a checkup on my research progress. I found Smiles codes for list of Alzheimer's drugs in a big Excel spreadsheet. And I used MRSA's clustering Python script to take that list of drugs and spit out a dendrogram and numerical bracket of I am interpreting as how similar those drugs are. Um, and most of it, because I already had the code, was just troubleshooting errors, and mainly with setting up Python, the actual script errors didn't take that long. I had to do a little bit of thinking, but I got the thing out. It seemed pretty solid. So for the next 2 weeks, I want to get more familiar with Python. I can kind of function by looking at the code and plugging in the chat GTP or chat whatever and kind of seeing what my problems are and going from there. But if you asked me to code something very simple, I would be struggling a lot. So I want to at least familiarize myself again with the syntax and, be comfortable swimming for my own in Python. So it starts with pandas and NumPy libraries videos, which Marissa told me to probably take a look at, and then I would, know a little more. And also label the dendrogram with Alzheimer's drugs, which I'm a little confused on, but I'll talk about that later. For my scientific paper, it was construction of a robust and sensitive arginine biosensor through ancestral protein reconstruction. I thought it was pretty interesting. I chose it because it was, biosensors stuff. And I kind of thought that was relevant to, what I'm working on right now with we're trying to get something to bind to a lot of these Alzheimer's drugs. So it kind of made sense in my mind. And I'm like kind of interested in biosensors, just as a subject. So I, figured I'd poke around a little bit. So I found out biosensors are typically made up of what is it? It's paraplasmic, which is the space between the cell membrane and the inner membrane, the plasma membrane. Um, Found out. So paraplasmic binding protein core and some luminescent sensor molecules that, light up when they find what they're looking for. And it's more, they said there was another way to measure the arginine, which was like it was also relevant to Alzheimer's disease, but it has a lot to do with a lot of symptoms like anxiety and other things. But it's a better way of measuring it. So basically their idea was we don't have a sensor right now because the protein cores keep breaking down because they're not thermodynamically stable enough, or when we add something onto it they become really bad. So they said, what if we looked at ancestral sequence reconstruction to find a good protein that might work to plug it in. They called it scaffolding a lot, which I thought was a pretty solid way of putting it. So what if we made it out of an ASR protein and it worked? It worked. They went through a little bit of troubleshooting, it seemed like, and it works really well. And they were just kind of talking about how they made it. That's all they were concerned about. And then I didn't look at the materials and methods. Maybe I would have learned some stuff if I, you know, read some paragraphs instead of looking at words. But I was kind of more concerned with the conceptual idea of it, maybe to kind of contextualize the work that I'm doing with the clustering stuff. But either way, I didn't read it. I still thought I gained a lot out of it, or at least a solid amount for this paper. It was pretty interesting. I thought it was pretty cool work. Yeah. Some questions. I actually, this one, I just looked at my email and I found out that I got rejected from this packaging job. I looked on their website and it said for the internship job, they were looking for like juniors and seniors. So it's probably that. Do you have any interview tips that I could use a little more? I was talking to my dad came up, so I was talking to him about it a little bit. And but I'm, kind of just trying to be more comfortable in interviews, learn some tips. I mean, with this company, at least it was, good practice, I feel like. And then I'm confused on how to label the Alzheimer's drugs in the plot. I kind of thought they were all Alzheimer's drugs coming from the little bottom. I'll zoom out and look at that. But I don't know how to do it. I could, I asked GPT, and it said to like label all of the Alzheimer's drugs in the original thing, and then some line of code to highlight them or mark them or whatever. So I could, maybe do that, but I'm a little confused on where to start, I think. And then will more work in the future be in Python? I can't say I enjoy it. Like I enjoy some of my hobbies or something, but I see the value in it. I know that it's a useful skill to have right now. So I would be interested in doing more coding work. But I'm also just curious. Okay, and so a little update or kind of a what's happening on the spider thing. These numbers are the real numbers, I'm pretty sure. So, and then it would be this graph is the first graph. So I have all this stuff, it's working. I encoded the CSV files to ANSI. Stack Overflow told me to do that if it couldn't read it, and it was whatever language it was 8 something. And then I commented all this out because it was mad at it. I wouldn't read it right. And then it just works. Yeah. I'm assuming this is, where I'd mess with the gendergram, but you know. But yeah. Marissa told me to mess with which number was it? The distance threshold. Um, and so that got me different, like a little different like things. Like I think I just made it bigger. So like yeah, for this one I was 36, 261, 1. This one 36, 261, 274. Then I made it 100 and they were all 0, which made sense because they would be in group 0 if they're all, if we say no matter how messed up they are, they're all similar enough. So yeah, that's kind of cool. Yeah. I mean, I still have a very vague idea of actually what each chunk of code here is doing. Um, but yeah, so for labeling what the Alzheimer's drugs are, I would assume you would want to label them down here because that's where they're starting, and this is where they're coming from. I mean, the OAT, well, I guess that's OATP. Um, yeah. So I guess I'm a little confused on that, like just in and of itself a little bit. Like I understand conceptually, yeah, it would be useful to, label what the Alzheimer's drugs are so we can kind of put that into view. But I'm a little perplexed. But I think that's all I have for right now. It was pretty cool. I enjoyed getting this to work. I like it. I like it when code works. So yeah, this was cool, fun. I guess that's the end of my update.